Today we're diving deep into one of the biggest boxing events of the year, Saturday's stacked card in Riyadh. The night is headlined by the undisputed light heavyweight rematch between Beterbiev and Bivol, alongside Daniel Dubois defending his IBF heavyweight title for the first time against Joseph Parker. To help us break down these elite level fights, we've brought in a man who knows all about preparing fighters for title bouts, formerly coached with Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders, and currently in the corner for AJ and Joshua. We're delighted to welcome Ben Davison. How you doing, sir?
Good, thank you. You?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. This is a massive night of boxing. How excited are you for this card on Saturday?
Yeah, extremely. It's, I think I've heard a lot of people saying that it's possibly one of the greatest cards of their generation. Being honest, I feel like I've got to agree. Amazing card. And in my opinion, I think it is probably the best card we've seen so far since the introduction of Riyadh season, and very, very excited.
Yeah, long may it continue. As a trainer and having been in these fights many times, how hard is it for you to switch off when you're watching these kind of fights and actually enjoy them rather than picking apart the fighters from a tactical standpoint?
Yeah, it can get difficult, but you know, I enjoy what I do, and I love looking at it like that. And I love thinking, you know, sometimes you can start painting a picture from a fight from the early rounds. You might see something that goes, it's not showing up right now, but in a few rounds' time, I think this might start showing up, and or this scenario keeps happening. Like I always say, knockouts and things are often they show themselves before it actually happens. It's very rare that the first time the person makes that mistake or that scenario presents itself, the fighter gets punished for it. Often the scenarios coming up a few times before they get made to pay.
Yeah, and if we just transition on to the previous fight between Beterbiev and Bivol, could you see any early trends between these two in the first couple of rounds and know that it was maybe going Beterbiev's way, or was there a point in the match where it went towards him?
I thought that fight was an unbelievable fight because I thought there was so many adjustments from both sides. They're both such smart, intelligent fighters that a pattern would start to emerge and the fighter was onto it. The fighter was able to recognize, okay, this is what they're looking for. Let me make this adjustment. And that's what made it such an intriguing fight. I thought it was an amazing fight. I was there live actually. And being honest, when I watched it at the time, I didn't have a great seat and I didn't see it all the way through. But at the time, I thought it looked like Bivol had done enough, but then when I watched it back, I actually thought that Beterbiev had done enough. So it was one of them fights as well where I totally understand. There was a lot of people thought Beterbiev won, a lot of people thought Bivol won, and I totally understand that. When I watched it back, I thought Beterbiev done enough, but it again, what really intrigued me was the adjustments and the IQ that was shown in that fight, and that's what's really leading me to be intrigued into the rematch.
And in the rematch, it was obviously so tight, as you said, in the first fight. As a trainer, how do you compensate for that? Because you don't want to make too many changes going into a rematch like that, or what kind of changes are you making when it's so tight on the scorecards?
I think it depends on because now you've had a chance to look at the opponent, because before that it's educated guesswork, as my man Lee Wiley would say. So you would base your game plan off of how you anticipate them to go about the fight. But after the fight, you've actually got the evidence to say, okay, when you was doing this, his response was typically this. In these scenarios, his response was typically that. So therefore, you can go away and work on that. This was working for us. This wasn't working for us. He actually come with a little bit more of this to his game than was anticipated, etc., etc. So, but sometimes you might have it nailed on. And sometimes it's just a case of, for whatever reason, we didn't manage to execute and make them pay enough for what it is that we actually prepared for. We need to be better in that. So as you say, sometimes it might be a case of not too many adjustments, but we need to do a better job of this. We need to do a better job of that. Sometimes it might be a case of I always remember when Lee Wood boxed Maurizio Lara, we prepared for him to be more aggressive. But I thought the first time he felt the weight of Lee Wood's shots, I thought it made him a lot more apprehensive. And he actually waited to try and counter Lee a lot more than being as reckless as we'd seen him before. So although Lee was banking the rounds, ultimately we lost that fight. But Lee was banking the rounds and everybody was like, oh, you know, just switched off, needs to do exactly what he was doing. We actually went the other way and said we need to make a big difference because he felt the weight of Lee's shots. He made an adjustment. Therefore, we feel like we need to make a U-turn in our approach. So I think it massively depends on what you're seeing, especially when you're going into a rematch. So I think it's a hard one to say. I think there needs to be some adjustments, especially from Bivol's side. And I'm intrigued to see them. But again, Beterbiev, such a smart fighter, be intriguing to see what adjustments he makes then.
Yeah, I know it's difficult to pick apart such amazing fights and the fighters and so tight. But what can you see? What adjustments would you make or would lean towards for either side that you saw from the first fight?
So I saw something with Bivol's coach. He was actually saying to Bivol, you're too much in the high guard, too much time in the high guard, defending by being a bit more physical with your forearm and your probes and keeping him off like that. And I understand that because although in a textbook, fantastic, my hands are up and I'm defending, Beterbiev's too big of a puncher to sit there and let him punch away at you like that. And that will take his toll. And I feel like Bivol's coach was aware of that. So I feel like there'll be less of that, which will work in Bivol's favour. Less time spent just stuck behind a high guard, defending in a high guard. Because Beterbiev doesn't just load up with one single shot. He's so heavy-handed. He doesn't actually put all his emphasis on one single shot. He's quite consistent and consecutive with his punches, which makes it very hard to defend. Different, like when Canelo boxed Bivol, he'd put some occupiers, but then load up on one big shot. Bivol was able to defend successfully out of the high guard against that. But when somebody's as consistent, consecutive, and the volume is like what Beterbiev was, and as heavy-handed as he is, it can take his toll getting stuck, so to speak, behind a high guard. So I think that's a big adjustment that Bivol's team will look to make.
And on Beterbiev's side, was there any improvements that you'd make coming out of that fight?
Yeah, I think there will be. I think that he had the right approach. I don't think you'll be looking to change too much. I don't think he does, to be honest. I think he's a real top-level fighter. I think that again, it's adjustments in time. So at times, Bivol setting little traps. I'm sure they'll be going back and looking at that and trying to take those away from him, as opposed to, I don't think there'll be a big U-turn in terms of approach and game plan on what he's trying to achieve. He's trying to break somebody down and get him out of there. He's never in a rush. Great patience. And I just think they'll look at some of the moments that Bivol had and think, how can we take that away? And I think it would just be a case of being a little bit more switched on to some of the traps that Bivol tries to set.
And looking ahead to Saturday, how do you envision it going down, calling this one?
It's a really difficult one. I think, again, amazing adjustments throughout the first fight. And I think that's going to be key going into this fight. If I had to put my money on it, I'd probably ever so slightly favour Beterbiev again. However, I did actually pick Bivol in the first fight. But I'm really, really intrigued to see how the fight plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And looking at it with not the knowledge of yourself, it seems such a tight bout. It's crazy. It's crazy to see how they would change enough to do it again. If Bivol does get the win, are you keen to see that rematch? The trilogy.
I am. Yeah, I would be. I also like to see I would have, to be honest. I'm not sure now. I was keen back when it happened, the Canelo and Bivol fight. I was keen to see that fight again. But that's obviously another option for Bivol. But of course, we'd like to see the trilogy if Bivol comes out on top.
Okay, so we're going nice Beterbiev win again. Could be wrong again.
Could be wrong again.
It could be as tight as it was last time on the scorecards. Let's move on to Dubois Parker, the co-main. You know one of them well more than the other, having cornered against him recently. How confident were you in that fight, AJ versus Dubois, that AJ would come out with the win there?
Yeah, of course we was very confident. Know that Dubois is a top fighter, obviously a dangerous fighter. We all know that. Big puncher, strong, youth on his side. But we was very confident. We was very aware, we didn't want Daniel getting off to a good start. Unfortunately, we was unable to stop that from happening. But that was important. I think if Daniel gets off to a good start and gets some momentum, really, really hard to hold off and take that momentum away from him.
And what was AJ's reaction to that loss? You and the teams, you got to sit a bit on it, but now having a couple of months passed, how do you guys see that result? How does it feel for you guys?
Part of the game, I think AJ's done 15 plus world title fights. Us as a coaching team's done plus 15 world title fights. When you're taking hard fights, as we've seen with Riyadh season, sometimes, unfortunately, you're going to be unsuccessful. But it's how you come back against those situations and scenarios that put you into that place in the first time. Along the way to get to anywhere, to get to any achievement, you're going to have failures along the way, and it's how you react to those failures that help you get to where you've got to. So when you're there, nothing else changes. If you have a bad night at the office, it's how you react to it. And as we've seen before, like just on AJ, as you mentioned there, he took a loss before, come back and bounce back before. So there's no reason to think that he's not able to do so again.
Yeah, and Saturday night, Joseph Parker poses a completely different kind of problem for Dubois. How do you see those two matching up? What's the test like for Dubois versus AJ compared to versus Parker on Saturday?
I think I wouldn't say it's a completely different. Parker's a seasoned, well-experienced fighter, former world champion himself. I think that he's on a great run at the minute with Andy Lee, who's doing a fantastic job with him. I think that he done a great job against Deontay Wilder in being brave and committing at the right times, knowing when to attack. And I think that if he takes that into this Dubois fight, that will give him some success. Again, obviously mentioned about giving Dubois momentum. He'll look to start fast, and if you can take that away from him and capitalize on some of the tendencies and things that Daniel's got, and Joe can get off to a good start, I think he's in for a shout. But again, Daniel's big, strong, dangerous guy, and he's always going to be. He's dangerous throughout as well. He's shown that he had a good engine against Jarrell Miller as well. Come on late after a torrid start against Filip Hrgovic. But I think it's important that you don't let him get too much momentum early on because, again, once he gets rolling, he's a hard man to stop.
Yeah, is that the angle you'd go for if you were in the Parker camp? Try and get him ruffled early to get him out of his momentum.
Yeah, I just think you need to get off to a good start. I think that if you let him get momentum, as I mentioned before, youth on his side, his confidence will shoot up. He's a big, strong guy. It becomes a tougher task, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think that Dubois is kind of overlooking Parker the way he's acted in recent weeks? He's kind of looking ahead to this fight with Usyk if he wins. Do you think that's the mentality to go with, or do you think that's just his confidence that he's going to win on Saturday?
I'm not sure. I'm not obviously in camp to see how he's behaving. His confidence is obviously up, as it should be. I think that he's saying the right things, but again, this is along the way, there's different tasks and different, when they say it's hard to become a world champion, even harder to remain champion. These are the little things, because does the hunger start to go? Life outside can become a little bit easier. More things I can do. Financially in a better position.
Yeah.
Is the hunger still there? Is the motivation still there? I'm not saying it's not with Daniel, but these are the things that get tested along the way. So these are part of the test as well as the opponent. These are the sort of tests that you get put towards, and it's for Daniel to show that he's able to stay on top and has got that hunger to keep it going, which I'm sure he has. But Parker's a solid test, and again, it's a fantastic fight on an amazing card.
Yeah. And what do you think, pivoting over to the Dubois camp, what do you think the focus should be for them, the keys to getting the victory Saturday?
I don't think they'll look to change too much. I think that, again, they'll look to make sure that they get off to a good start, make it hard for Parker to get any momentum, while at the same time building Daniel's momentum. And they'll know that once Daniel gets into a groove like that, he's a hard man to hold off and to take that momentum away from. So I don't think they'll actually look to make too many adjustments to what we've been seeing as of late.
Yeah, nice. And how do you see it going down Saturday between these two?
I'm really not sure. I think Daniel's on a good roll. Joe's on a good roll. They're both on a great roll. I think the early rounds and the start of the fight will tell us a lot about what to expect. So I'm very intrigued to see how both fighters start. And I think that I actually think we're going to be in for a great fight.
Yeah, the bookies have it 4-9 Dubois on, giving him, that's about a 65-70% chance of winning. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, for sure.
And if he does get the win Saturday, it looks like it could be Usyk next. They've obviously fought before. How do you see that matching up in the rematch? Do you think it'll be the same outcome?
Yeah, I don't think Daniel's changed that much. I think that the tendencies that he's got are still there from the first fight. And, there's no shame in a loss to Usyk, obviously. He put his name down as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, in my opinion. But I think that the fight won't look too different, if I'm being honest.
So you see Usyk coming out of a win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that fight happening would lead to Usyk becoming a 3-time undisputed champion of the world. Once at cruiserweight, twice at heavyweight. What a phenomenal achievement.
Right up there, isn't he?
I agree.
Just quickly, we'll go through the undercard. It's stacked, and it's going to be nice to sit down for hours and watch boxing, rather than just having the first 3 being elite. This is a seriously good card. Start with Stevenson, Schofield.
Yeah, I think heavily in Shakur's favour there. I'm a big fan of Shakur. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. I can tell he's absolutely in love with the game, and I love that. And yeah, I'm going to go over Shakur stoppage there. Nice.
Adames, Shiraz.
I haven't actually seen too much of Carlos Adames, being honest, but I've heard lots of good things. But I'm also a big fan of Hamza Shiraz, so I'm really intrigued on that one. I'm hoping Hamza comes through and is successful. But I've heard that Carlos Adames is a handful.
We'll go down to Zhang Kabiel, because Kabiel's BoxRec have Kabiel 3 ranks now in the heavyweights. Is that, just quickly before we go into that fight, could that be a fight for AJ next?
Potentially. I think is this a final eliminator between?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Look, the thing is with AJ, a lot of people don't like it, but he put himself in a position for his success, and what he's done for the sport of boxing, where he's always got a chance to walk into any fight.
Yeah.
He's never. I think that people can we know how demanding the public are. He's shown that he's always willing to fight anybody, even when, again, we know how demanding the public are. Even when the public are telling him he shouldn't be taking a certain fight, he took the fight. Going into immediate rematches and things like that with Ruiz and Usyk, etc. So he's shown the type of character that he's made of and that he's got. So the heavyweight landscape can change very quickly. A few big heavyweight fights on this card, as we've been mentioning and talking about. So I think we'll see after Saturday how the land lies, and see what options are there.
Picture could look a bit clearer Sunday morning. Yeah. And we'll just quickly touch on Buatsi Smith. Obviously, big British interest there. What thoughts have you got on that fight?
I think both lads are really, really top lads. I think it's a really good fight. Really good fight. I think they're both highly skilled fighters. I think it's the biggest test of the biggest fight and the best fighter Buatsi's been in with so far. Callum's been in with some really high-level fighters, Beterbiev, Canelo, etc. So I think this fight we'll learn a lot about Buatsi, and we'll also learn a lot about how much Callum's got left in the light heavyweight division. So I'm intrigued for that fight. I've not got a stance on who I think wins that fight. I've got a lot of respect for both guys. But I think it's a great contest as well. Great contest again, as we've said many times. I think it's an amazing card.
Don't want to make any enemies there.
No, I don't know. I think it's a hard fight to know where both are at, and I think this is the fight for us to find out where both are at.
Yeah, and the bookies have Buatsi 1-2, so he's favoured, but there's no strong opinion there. As is Caballero as well, he's 4-6 on against Zhang. And now we just move on to Turki Alalshikh and that impact. I mean, there's been such a shift in the past couple of years since this investment's come in. As a fan, I think as you would be as well, you just get frustrated not seeing these fights build, and now they seem to just be coming every other month. What can you say on the impacts that the Riyadh season's had?
Yeah, just as you mentioned there, I think it's great that we're getting a lot of these fights that we probably wouldn't have been getting to see, and again, it's not always the fighters, it's often down to broadcasters, promoters, and Turki Alalshikh has been able to bring those together. It's been able to bring together broadcasters, promoters, and make these fights happen. Not just the biggest fights, but also, when you've got somebody in number 1 position or number 2 position, they don't really want to take a risk because they might get the big fight. He's been getting those fights made, number 1 versus number 2, and of course, it's great for boxing. It's probably going to be a unpopular opinion, but I also think it's important that fights do get a chance to marinate. I think that although I'm the same, all boxing fans think that I want to know who wins out of them two. However, the fact that there's a topic of conversation, some people think he's better, some people think he'd win. I think that draws interest into the sport of boxing as well. So I think there's an element to be said for not being too quick to make these fights. But again, that's part of seeing number 1 versus number 2. And the next potential champions them having those big fights as well, and making the right fights at the right time. I think not making them too early, not making them too late. That's what really frustrates us boxing fans. But I think he's also doing a good job of when he's got, for example, there's Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. He's not matching them back together straight away. They're both having a fight. That helps marinate it. And I think they're doing a great job of that as well. So I think it's been amazing for the sport of boxing. And long may it continue.
Yeah, I guess I can't remember what card it was, but he did sponsor one in the UK. I guess the next, that was the Joshua Dubois card, didn't it? They were sponsoring that. I think that's the next thing we'd want to see as a British boxing fan, is seeing these Riyadh cards. I guess that's a bit too selfish, but seeing the Riyadh cards in the UK, because the atmosphere would be crazy for Dubois.
Yeah, there was the Riyadh card at Wembley. I know there's been some Riyadh season cards over in the States, so I think that's fantastic that they're doing that as well.
Yeah, we kind of nice. We kind of touched on AJ earlier, and as we said, we're going to see how Saturday marinates. Is there anything marinating back there in the kitchen, in AJ's kitchen?
Not really. He's just focused on himself at the minute. A couple of niggling injuries, as people know about, and he's just getting back to full fitness to be able to start full training again. Nice.
So, is there a time frame, do you think, that we expect to see a fight for him?
No, I don't think there's got to be ready by this date or anything like that. I think everybody wants to see the Fury fight, but whether that will happen, we're not sure. Again, as we mentioned, seeing how the heavyweight landscape changes after Saturday, so we'll see.
Yeah, and you touched on it there. I think that's the one that's been marinating for long enough. I think we all want to see that AJ Fury fight before he retires again. Do you think there's a chance of that happening?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. Whether we'll see it or not, I'm not sure. I think there's more chance of it happening now than ever, as you say, with the introduction of Riyadh season, having the relationship with both sides there, bringing all the broadcasters together, all the things that we already mentioned. So, I mean, we'll see. Of course, it's the fight that boxing fans want to see, but we'll see. Yeah.
It seems like too much money on the table to walk away from, even if you do want to retire that fight. I mean, both of them, I think, looking from the outside, you know better, but both of them would love that fight as well, wouldn't they, personally?
Yeah, of course they would. Of course, it's a legacy-defining fight for them that I always say, when you're coming through, I think it's really important that you have a dance partner. And they've been each other's dance partner for a long time now. So I think it'd have massive interest. And as you mentioned, it's been happening for a while, and it's the one that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, and you've obviously cornered for them both. Just wanted to hear what your thoughts are when you're looking at a fighter. What do you want to see in them for you to corner for them and train them? What excites you into a project?
You want ability, obviously, but at the same time, the ability level is not always going to be the same. Some are going to have more, some are going to have less. Some people's ability is going to be more physical. Some people's ability is going to be more the technical aspect. But I think one thing that you must have is a love for it, a want and a desire to get better constantly. I think that all the top fighters I've worked with, they have that. And I think sometimes, being honest, there's an element of insecurity that a fighter needs to have. Am I good enough? And having that little bit of insecurity makes them do that little bit more. And I think that's important. I think that's often why you see fighters are, when they're in with better fighters, you see a better performance from them, because they've got that little bit of doubt, that little bit of that extra something that you need to bring that extra gear out of you. Some people have that no matter who they box. You know, they've always got that ability to go that extra mile, do that extra, be that extra little bit focused. And I think that's so important, so important. I think it's more important than the technical ability, being honest. I've had lads that have more talent than fighter A's got more talent than fighter B, but fighter B's got a lot more desire, a lot more hunger, a lot more. And I don't even mean in terms of heart and want and will. I just mean in terms of wanting to get better, wanting to improve his game, spending more time focused on improving his game. And that can quickly go like that. And I think that for me, it's so important that the boxer loves what he does and is really passionate about it, because we are. And that motivates us as coaches. And at the end of the day, what my job is and what motivates me is helping them achieve their goals. That's the reason why I do what I do. That gives me a great satisfaction and a great buzz. So if the fighters aren't passionate about it, unfortunately, I know my strengths and weaknesses as a coach. One of my strengths is you give me 100, I'll give you 200. But I know one of my weaknesses is you give me 50, I'll give you 10. So I'm very aware of that. And I think that's probably the most important thing for me when working with a fighter.
Yeah, I was asking because you've recently started working with Moses last year. Is what have you seen in him that, well, he's obviously an amazing prospect. But what have you seen now up close and personal working with him and his trajectory?
I think he absolutely loves it. Absolutely loves it. Like when he's in camp and he's sparring, and we'll record his sparring and go back over it. You know, he'll start messaging at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. where he's watching it back. Is this what you mean? More of this? Or was it okay when I did this? Those little things there, like, as a fighter, you spend 2 hours in the gym in the morning, 2 hours in the gym in the evening. That's not job done. But a lot of them treat it like that, being honest. How many hours are left in the day for you to be focused on what you learned that morning, what you learned the day before, to be watching other fighters? What fights can I watch that are similar to that I can emulate or watch and see how they do it? Or just that sort of mentality. There's some you can pick up and learn just as much by doing it physically as you can visually, by learning visually. Some people are better visual learners, some people are better physical learners. But I think that, again, as we were talking about before, I think that it's so important that the time that you spent out the gym, how are you spending that time? There's a great, it was Floyd Mayweather, I think, it might have been getting introduced to the Hall of Fame or something like that. And he said, they used to say to me, when I go home, I need to do my homework. And I used to say, F the homework, put that boxing tape on. He didn't choose to specifically say, put that boxing tape on. But that's what he was doing, because he was hungry outside of the gym times. Right, gym's not till 4, gym's not till 5. What can I do? Let me watch that fight. What did that fighter do? Let me learn something from that fighter. He's learning, like, as I said, visually he's learning. He's getting hours over you, over somebody that's not doing that. And working with Moses, he absolutely loves that. And every day, questions upon questions upon questions. Like I say, he'll go away, watch a fight, come back, ask questions, hungry to learn. That motivates us as coaches. And as you said there, what an amazing prospect. He's the prospect. He is the prospect in world boxing. I think that given the opportunity, he's well in for a chance of breaking Mike Tyson's record. Whether that opportunity will come, I'm not sure. I know people talking about his age and experience, but if that's a goal of his, and the opportunity comes, he's openly said he wants to take that. And if you're good enough, you're old enough, and I believe he's good enough.
Yeah, yeah. You can hear the excitement in your voice when you're talking about him. And we as fans can see he's going to be a top player in this division. Like talking about AJ and Fury, and it seems like that group of heavyweights kind of coming to the end now. Those batch of heavyweights that have carried this division for a decade plus. Now looking to the next 5 and 10, does Moses is that is going to be Moses in 5 10? That where he can look forward to and say, okay, I can be there with whether it be Dubois or someone else. He can be that guy for the next 10, 15 years.
Again, if he's motivated to want to achieve that, I think what he's capable of doing is phenomenal. I think he has the potential to go down as one of the greatest heavyweights of any era. But having the potential to and doing it are two different things. So he has to be motivated and want to do that. What he's achieving so far is fantastic, but it's not even scratching the surface in terms of what he's capable of. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to be able to put yourself and mark yourself down as one of the greatest of all time. But the potential is there to be able to do so. And, really, really excited for the journey.
When do you think we'll see him in the ring again?
I think that there'll be some news coming out soon.
Nice.
So, yeah, not my place to announce anything, but we've got a couple of possibilities in mind. So, yeah.
Is that with an eye on Saturday, or is that kind of coming to the equation, or is it not really anything to do with that?
As I said, his goal, he wants to break Mike Tyson's record. If the opportunity comes up, he wants to take that. Whether the opportunity will come up or not, I'm not sure. As we spoke about earlier on, the landscape of the division can change very quickly. So we'll see. We'll see soon. But I think we'll have some news relatively soon as well.
Yeah, you're touching on that he's a student of the game. Is there any fighters in particular that he watches more than others, or that he markets this game off?
I think he's which I think he's really good. He's good at, we'll say to him, for example, he's at the point where different fights will mean different approaches against different styles. And we'll give him, this is the way to go about this fight. Here's a good example of this fighter doing these things. And he'll go away and watch that fight. So I won't say he specifically, I love watching this guy. He loves Prince Naseem. But he's very good at staying focused on, okay, they want me to approach the fight like this. These are a few fights that they're telling me is good to watch, and he'll focus on them. And then from then, it's about, once he gets an idea of what it is that we want, then it's about focusing on him, and the rest plays out itself. Once the focus will go onto him, and then we'll start looking at, as I say, we'll record the sparring, go back over it. Here's what you did right. Here's what you did wrong. A little bit more emphasis on this, a little bit less of that. And yeah, and then it's just final tweaks from there.
Nice. Have you got any other UK prospects that the casual might not have heard of that you can say are rising through, or you expect to rise through the ranks?
Yeah, I think there's everybody in the gym. I think Pat McCormack just had a fantastic win on the weekend, Olympic silver medalist, real special talent, welterweight. I've had Sean Porter getting on to me on the phone about how excited he is about Pat as well. Shabazz Massoud had a fantastic win over Liam Davies recently. Alois Jr., another one. Big tank monster puncher in the welterweight division. Exciting. So you got Luke McCormack as well, another Olympian. Pat's brother, they're two twins. He's in the light welterweight division. Exciting, explosive. So got some real talent coming through as well.
An exciting time to be in UK boxing.
For sure.
Canelo's just had his multi-fight deal announced. Hopefully that ends with him versus Crawford. What's your thoughts on that fight? Canelo's opened a very heavy favourite in the betting.
Yeah, I've got to agree there. I mean, Terence Crawford, phenomenal fighter. Funny enough, just before we started, I was literally sitting down watching Terence Crawford, one of the fighters there, just going through some of the things that he does well, that I'd like my fighter to emulate. But Canelo he's still an exceptional fighter. On top of that, the weight, obviously, the experience at the weight as well is a factor, because Canelo's come up from similar divisions. He's come up through the weights, so I would understand the argument there. The difference is Canelo seasoned at that weight, but I also, the styles relative to, so the styles and the approach to the fight relative to the weight, I think will have a big factor in terms of Canelo's going to be like the bigger guy who's more experienced at that weight. He's going to be the guy on the front foot pressing the pace, and I find that I feel that Crawford will have a hard job just holding him off.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about crossover / Misfits boxing. It'd be good to get your view on it all and whether you think it's actually good for the sport. And then if you could just give your opinion on whether you'd let one of your fighters go into a fight with someone like Jake Paul or KSI or someone else who's in this landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who the fighter is, what their aspirations are, where they're going. I've got respect for Jake Paul because I think that he treats the game. He's more professional than some of the professionals, being brutally honest. And I've got to respect that. He's invested in himself. He's took it very seriously, and he's made a lot of progress in a short period of time. Does it mean he's ready to fight top guys, some of the names that he mentions? Obviously not, no. But I respect, because it's not easy when you've started at 8, 9, 10 years old. Never mind when you started at the age that he started. And he's dove all in and he's given it his best, and I respect that. I think that he's given a platform to some of the guys. I know some of he's signed some prospects and trying to put them on his cards, which are doing fantastic numbers. So again, I respect that. I think that the calling out Canelo and stuff like that, I think he knows, being honest, and I think that it's part of the game that he's playing. I understand that annoys some people, triggers some people, but I respect what he's doing. I think that he's trying his best to really do something in the sport, and at the same time, make sure he's securing the bag. And I don't have an issue with that. I think that with some of the lowest level Misfit stuff and that, with the lesser experienced guys, I just think that it's important that we're safety conscious. Maybe turn them into white collar fights, 16-ounce gloves, head guard, that sort of thing, just to be on the safe side. Some of them are older guys fighting younger guys and this kind of stuff. So I think it's important that we respect the safety side of things there and be smart about it. But if it's bringing fans to boxing, bringing more platforms to boxing, Netflix as an example, it can only be good as long as the only negative that can come out of it is somebody getting hurt. And I think it's important that, as I said before, we take into consideration the safety aspects, and if all that's in check, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree.
I've actually got a lot of respect for, like when you see these 50-year-old businessmen that go and do their white collar fight. I've got a lot of respect for that. It takes a lot of courage to be, to do something like that. And so, yeah, as long as it's not damaging to the sport, and that's the only way I can see it being damaging to the sport, is something like that happening. So as long as we take care of that, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I guess there's 2 points on that. Firstly, the safety is obviously paramount, and it just seems a bit wild that amateurs are just being allowed to just go in and fight on a pro card on Misfits, like you said, without a head guard. And also, it would be good, I guess, from a fan's point of view, you want to see Jake Paul fighting a prospect rather than the names that he's gone for. We want to see him fighting a young prospect, but maybe that will just expose him. Have you got anyone in your gym you'd send out to him?
Well, is he a cruiserweight? I've got Alois, but no, I mean, look, he had the Tommy Fury fight, didn't he? And I've obviously spent time around Tommy, and Tommy can fight. Tommy can actually fight. So, respect that. He was unsuccessful that night, but he laid it on the line, and like I said, fair play to him. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The fact that some of the opponents that he does choose tells me that I know that when he's calling out the likes of Canelo, he knows the script there. But again, I do feel like he's dove all in and he's very professional about it, takes it seriously in terms of his training and that sort of stuff, and I respect that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, just want to get a couple fights, maybe 2 or 3, that you want to see this year from a fan's point of view.
I'd love to see the Shakur and Tank Davis fight. Really keen to see that one. I'd like to see Devin and Ryan fighting again. Love to see that. And the next one, we're going to get to see it on Saturday, Beterbiev and Bivol rematch.
Yeah, it's huge, huge. And if you could just tell us a bit about your performance center and how that just came to be and when that all started up.
Yeah, so we was in lockdown at the time. I was actually away in Vegas with Billy Joe Saunders and Josh Taylor at the time. And then lockdown comes, so we had to come back. And I didn't have a facility at the time because I'd been training Tyson abroad, training Billy Joe abroad as well. And then we went out for a training camp in Fuerteventura. An opportunity come up, not too far from where I live, a facility becoming available. And I jumped at it. And just being honest, I went all in. One of the guys that was with me, I started calling him Barry How Much, because all he kept saying to me was, how much is this and how much is that? And I just said to him, I think that if you go all in and you make it or try to anyway, make it the best possible facility you can, my goal is to try and make it a place where people feel like I can't afford not to be there. And very quickly started to get some momentum, some success with Josh Taylor. Undisputedly would become world champion. That led to a few more fighters coming over. Lee McGregor become European champion. Lee would add a few more successful defenses. Pat and Luke ended up coming over. And then followed by Fabio, followed by AJ, followed by Moses. And just been on a roll really since then, and never looked back. Was a good decision I feel like I made. Nothing's ever plain sailing, obviously, but it was a necessary decision. Funny enough, I was talking to Kevin Mitchell about the bonuses of having your own gym just this morning, and he's in the process of setting up his own gym. And yeah, I'm pleased with how it's gone so far.
Nice. Good to hear. Trending in the right direction.
That's it.
Just quickly before we finish, you mentioned a name there that we haven't touched on, Fabio Wardley. What do you expect his calendar to look like this year?
Not too sure. I think that his goal is to either fight for a world title or put himself in line to fight for a world title this year. And I think they're in talks at the minute to see how that can be done. So again, hopefully we'll have some news soon on Fabio's path and the plan for his 2025.
Another knockout. Another crazy knockout, please. Cheers, Ben. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem.